Topic today is imposter syndrome, how to stop feeling like a fraud as a healer. So, the imposter syndrome is an outer expression of a deeper initiatory spiritual wound. So, initiatory means, right, you're going to have to go through some initiations yourself to heal this wound. Does that make sense to you? So, it's a deeper initiatory spiritual wound, and it's associated with not feeling good enough. So, it can be fear disguised as humility. It can be shame dressed as spiritual modesty. Most dangerously, it convinces you that your work as a healer should be delayed until you are somehow better or more qualified or more healed. And the truth is, this wound must be addressed now because we are in a time when the world is calling for healers to fully claim and to powerfully stand up in their rightful place as healers. So no one can stand up for you. You must stand up, stand out, and stand tall, proud, confident, and fully empowered in your chosen role. And I want to say this very clearly. When I say chosen role, this is not a role chosen by the personality. Many people in life choose their vocation by weighing up their skills or comparing salaries or following somebody else's idea of what's right for them. Choosing to be a healer and to live a soul-based life is not a personality-based decision. It's a soul calling. It's a choice your soul made before you came here. It's part of your soul's contract. There is not one way to be a healer, and certainly not one size that fits all in terms of how the soul contract is to be fulfilled by each individual soul. But there are certain definite steps that each soul must and can consciously take to powerfully assist it in fulfilling its contract and stepping into its destiny. Thousands of healers I've worked with in my clinic and training establishments over the past 50 or so years have told me the same thing. I just know I was born to be a healer. I don't know how to explain it. I've always felt this is what I'm supposed to do. So, or they might say things like, it's hard to put into words, but deep down, I've always known I was different, or I was here to help others heal, to help others. But even with this deep inner knowing, the wound of not good enough silently plagues so many healers. Where does the spiritual wound of not being good enough come from? So it often arises from far memory of being punished or silenced or exiled for spiritual knowledge. It can come from ancestral trauma carried through bloodlines that feared spiritual expression. Collective wounding around power, authority, visibility, and the misuse of healing gifts, or negative energetic patterns in the group mind that diminish the sacred role of the healer. So essentially, the role of the healer and the soul cannot be separate. Okay, the soul is inextricably interwoven into our inner healer. Those of you who are familiar with the House of the Bee medicine wheel will know in the second quadrant of the medicine wheel, which is where we move into the realm of soul, we move out of self and we move into the realm of soul. That is where we also meet our inner healer. So when we're not fully standing in our role as a healer, we're not standing in alignment and accord with our soul and its reality. So think about what I just said there. If we're not fully standing in our role as a healer, we're not standing in alignment and accord with our soul and its realities. And when I say standing in our role as a healer, it doesn't mean that we have to be out there hanging our sign up that says, I am a healer. Okay, it's not necessarily as obvious as that. It's a way of being in the world. Not having to put that handle on, but it's inextricably linked with soul. It's a soul path. It's a soul standing place. Just our presence is a healing presence, for instance. When the soul is present and our presence is healing without you even having to open your mouth. And we must be in relationship with this aspect of our being, or we cannot be in relationship with our spirit. So when we reject the values of our soul and we are alienated from our soul, we cannot fully embody our power as a healer, our soul power. We stay disconnected from both nature, because our soul is inextricably connected with nature, and from our true source of guidance, power, and purpose. So let's have a look now. How does the spiritual wound of not feeling good enough express at the personality level? So when the deep spiritual wound of not feeling good enough is left unhealed, it filters down to the personality level. So this is not a personality issue. We can't address it at a personality issue, but it will filter down to the personality level. So just be clear about that distinction. It'll filter down into the thoughts, behaviors, emotional responses, and patterns that a person lives with every day. So these expressions are often subtle and seen as socially acceptable, which is why we can go which is why they can go unnoticed or even be praised as humility or modesty or such terms. But in reality, they're symptoms of inner conflict, a split between the personality self and the soul. So some of the most common personality level expressions are chronic self-doubt. Okay, even when there is external evidence of skill or impact or progress, we have chronic self-doubt. We can have over-preparing or over-qualifying, a feeling of never quite ready yet, leading to, just putting off stepping out there. Using minimizing language, saying things like, oh, I'm just helping people a bit. I don't really have a fully set up business yet. I've just started out, or that type of minimizing language, undermining language. Another way is avoiding visibility, so shrinking from opportunities to speak, teach, or lead because of a fear of being found out. Now, the world is full of people speaking from a personality level. Most of it's a crock of S or C, but we're talking about speaking out from that place of the soul as part of your evolutionary journey. Another way that this can express is imposter thoughts. What if they realize I don't actually know what I'm doing, or I'm not as spiritual as they think? People pleasing or overgiving is another one. So trying to compensate for a perceived lack by doing more, giving more, charging less. Difficulty receiving praise or payment, brushing off compliments, or feeling uncomfortable receiving money for healing work. And perhaps the most important one, where the healer distrusts their own inner knowing. So for those of you, some of you may have heard me speak about this card before, but this card, a major tarot key, number 6, is a beautiful example of the personality vehicle shown as the male on the right as you're looking at the card, the soul shown as the female, the anima is there, and then we have spirit. So in order to be able to trust our inner knowing, then we need to have the sacred relationship between soul and spirit and the personality vehicle in place. And so the imposter syndrome, of course, strikes at the very heart of that. You'll see behind the anima, behind the soul, behind the figure of the woman is a tree, and there's the snake of wisdom, the snake of healing. And to be in sacred relationship with Kundalini energy as well as a natural aspect of being in relationship with soul. So to be able to respond to the inner knowing that comes from our spirit and also from our own clairsentience, etc., which I'll cover shortly. So when we distrust our inner knowing, then even when the intuition is strong, or even when spirit speaks to them, even when they feel the nudge from the universe, then the person will hesitate and doubt. They'll second guess. They'll wait for more validation. They'll hand over their spiritual authority to someone outside themselves. And why is this happening? Because the personality is trying to prove worthiness instead of allowing the soul to simply be what it already is. So this is why no amount of logical reassurance or external validation truly resolves it. It must be healed at the level of the spiritual identity. That is you firmly standing in and identifying with your soul and not your personality. When the personality is fully submitted to the soul, then fears, not good enoughness, and dissolve. So how can the spiritual wounding of not feeling good enough affect a healer? Well, that wound comes at a high cost on all levels. When it's left unaddressed, the healer remains stuck in cycles of unreadiness, never launching or never fully launching themselves into the world. Remember, this is not just your healing practice, this is life itself. What also happens is they won't take up the space that is theirs. You're not taking up the space that is yours. Remember that we're not just our physical body, we have an auric field, we have a space. But when this wound is left unaddressed, then we're not taking up that space. I'm not talking about ego, I'm not talking about false ego, I'm talking about energetic space that's yours. It can express as not feeling fulfilled because you're not doing the work you're meant to be doing, or feeling underpaid, undervalued. And a calling to be a healer becomes a source of pain instead of joy. So even if the healer is doing their healing work and other people are receiving positive outcomes, then the healer can have a sense of remaining unfulfilled. And the soul contract remains dormant or not fully activated, and the soul suffers. So it truly is a wound that, while not necessarily openly visible for what it is causes suffering to the soul. So some very practical examples in business, it might be, okay, the website never gets finished. Okay, it's constantly being redesigned, rewritten, or postponed, or services are created but never offered publicly because it's not ready yet, or the email list that never gets emailed out of fear of sounding unqualified or salesy, or not putting up a professional bio or photo because it feels exposing or too much, or never actually sharing your story or talking about what you can do and how you can help, often for fear of being rejected. But that just confirms that they're not good enough. In finances, it can express as undercharging or offering healing services for free or donation, because now I'm not saying there's anything wrong with not charging, because it may be you may choose to do that as part of your business, but it's the motivation. So undercharging or offering healing services for free or donation only because charging feels wrong, as opposed to a kind of a standing place. Uh, in finances, it can express as constantly giving extra time or free sessions or discounts to make up for perceived inadequacy, or feeling guilty or ashamed when somebody pays full price, or even avoiding putting a price on your work altogether, or avoiding financial growth out of fear that success will draw attention or judgment or accusations of being unspiritual. When it comes to visibility, it can express as avoiding being on camera or speaking live, even though you know you're meant to be sharing your wisdom, or not applying for speaking events or opportunities because somebody else must be more qualified, or holding back from writing social media posts. It kind of goes on. You get the gist of it. Or avoiding marketing and business, or telling yourself, once I finish this next thing, I'll be ready, but that moment never arrives. So the impact of all of this is that this compounds and it creates spiritual stagnation. And the healer or the soul stays stuck in preparation mode, kind of circling around their calling, but never quite living it. And so as a result of that, the world misses out on the medicine that they're here to bring. And most painfully, the soul begins to feel the weight of unlived purpose.